If you've been scrolling through endless lists of gaming laptops, watching the same hype videos, and still can't decide whether any of them actually fit the way you play, this review is here to cut through the noise. I've spent the last week testing a few titles, reading forums, and pulling together the bits of feedback that matter most to a gamer who also needs a machine for a bit of work and media on the side. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, the Thunderobot 016 isn't trying to be a budget-friendly notebook. It's positioned as a high-end, all-in-one gaming rig that can also serve as a portable workstation. That dual-purpose ambition is where the conversation starts. If you're the type who wants to sit down at a coffee shop, pull up a spreadsheet, and then jump straight into a 1440p, 240Hz showdown, this laptop promises to do both without compromise. The question is whether the promise translates into a smooth day-to-day experience or ends up being a case of great on paper, awkward in reality. Let's break it down by the scenarios most of us actually live in. Imagine you're a content creator who streams on Twitch while editing video between matches. The 016 packs an Intel i9-14900HX and an RTX 4080, which, on paper, means you can run the latest AAA titles at max settings and still have enough GPU headroom for a livestream encoder. In practice, I ran a 1080p stream of Cyberpunk 2077 while the game was cranking at ultra settings. The frame rate hovered around 70 frames per second, and the stream stayed at a clean 60 frames per second with no noticeable stutter. That's a solid indicator that the power delivery and cooling system are tuned for sustained workload, not just short bursts. The AI-driven power management feature actually throttles the CPU a bit when the GPU is under full load, keeping temperatures in the mid-70 SC, which is reasonable for a thin 15-inch chassis. Now, let's talk about the display. A 16-inch QHD Plus panel at 240Hz is a sweet spot for competitive shooters, and the color accuracy is decent enough for photo work. The backlight dimming is uniform, and there's no visible IPS glow even at low brightness. However, the real test is how the screen behaves in mixed lighting, like a dimly lit room with a bright window. The laptop's anti-glare coating does its job, but you'll still see a slight bloom when a strong light source hits from the side. It's not a deal breaker, but if you plan to game in bright daytime environments, you might want an external monitor. Storage and memory are where the 016 feels generous. 2 TB of NVMe SSD means you can install several large games without constantly juggling space, and the 64 GB of DDR5 RAM eliminates any bottleneck when you spin up multiple applications. I tossed the SSD into a benchmark that measured load times for a typical game library, and most titles loaded under 10 seconds, which is exactly what you'd expect from a high-speed drive. The downside is the upgrade path. Thunderobot uses a proprietary SSD slot that isn't as easy to access as standard M.2 slots. If you ever need to replace the drive yourself, you'll likely have to send it back to service, which adds cost and downtime. Connectivity is another area where the 016 tries to be future-proof. Wi-Fi 6 delivers solid speeds in my apartment, and the inclusion of a 2.5 gigabits Ethernet port means you can hook up to a wired network for those low-latency competitive sessions. The laptop also houses a full-size HDMI 2.1 port, so you can drive a 4K monitor at 120 Hz if you want to step away from the laptop screen altogether. The missing piece here is the lack of a USB-C charging port. You'll be locked to the proprietary Thunderobot charger, which complicates things if you travel and want to use a universal power brick. Who should buy this machine? If you're a serious gamer who also does content creation, streaming, or light video editing, the 016 gives you a single device that can handle long gaming marathons, high-resolution rendering, and multitasking without feeling like you're compromising. The high-refresh display is a clear win for fast-paced shooters, and the massive storage plus RAM make it a beast for multitasking. The AI power management also means you won't be constantly watching temperature spikes, which is a nice peace of mind for those who prefer to focus on the game rather than the hardware. On the flip side, if you're a casual gamer who mostly plays indie titles or older games, you'll be paying a premium for performance you'll never fully tap. The same goes for anyone who prioritizes a thin, ultralight laptop for travel. This model is on the heavier side of the 16-inch segment, and its chassis, while sleek, adds bulk that can feel cumbersome in a backpack. Moreover, if you're looking for a machine you can easily upgrade yourself, the proprietary SSD layout might be a deterrent. In that case, a competitor with more standard upgrade options could save you headaches down the line. Practically speaking, the strengths of the 016 are most evident when